And welcome everyone. I see some very friendly faces on the participant list. So welcome to everyone and thank you so much for carving out some time today to participate in this webinar about emerging technology skills for Industry 4.0. For those of you that aren't even sure what's in that title, don't worry, we're going to go all about it. Many of you have participated in webinars or have worked with me in the past, but I'll start out with a quick introduction of me. As Vanessa said, I am privileged to be the Chief Product and Operating Officer here at CertNexus. For those of you not familiar with who CertNexus is and our relationship with New Horizons, we are a certification body. So we focus on vendor neutral. So that means we're not specific to any technology. We love all different vendor types and different technologies and try to expose our learners to as many as we possibly can while focusing on developing skills in emerging technologies such as IoT, AI, data science, and data ethics. And we focus on the whole organization. So we're not just designing for IT professionals. We are also looking at the people that are supporting the practitioners within those technologies, such as the business professionals, security professionals, data professionals, and even end users. We have some amazing clientele in terms of holding our certifications, everyone globally and across different industries, which is a wonderful thing about focusing on emerging technologies and not a specific technology or vendor type. So as you can see, we have everyone from commercial to government to hotel and hospitality management to telecom. And this is just a sampling of a few. And we hope to add your logos here as well. But let's get in and talk about what we're going to focus here on today. So we're going to start off by talking about what are these technology trends that we're seeing. Really, why is it affecting us as business owners? And then discuss what this emerging tech impact is on our jobs. So how is it affecting us as in human resources, in recruiting, in just maintaining normal business operations? And then explain why emerging tech needs to expand beyond the traditional IT profile within an organization. So what can we do about it? And we have a slightly different approach that we feel is more inclusive for an entire organization to shift cultures. So let's start out by defining what these trends are. And I'm going to shut off my video just so I'm not a distraction, and also so that you have a little bit more real estate on your screen to see what we're presenting. But don't worry, I will remain a real person throughout this entire webinar here today. So what are the technology trends that we're seeing that maybe you've heard of? And how can we split these apart and dissect them a little bit? The first trend is this idea, and it's not a trend, it's actually an evolution of being in the fourth industrial revolution. So it is this idea of taking traditional manufacturing and advancing it with automation. So we're also expanding it not in terms of just technology, but practices and processes, and utilizing what we call smart technology or modern technology. Over here on the right-hand side, the image is titled, "What is Industry 4.0?" But this is really just an example of some of these modern technologies that are advancing the initiative and the intent of the fourth industrial revolution. So things like cloud computing has a big part, and it's an enabling technology in allowing us to advance this idea of automation. Wireless technology also is allowing us to reach the technology in places that we couldn't before, and look at how we can secure the consistent delivery of these technologies. Artificial intelligence that you see there is really taking automation in terms of advancing and pulling and extracting value out of data and the information we have by enabling machines to do the work at a faster and more intense pace, utilizing human-driven algorithms. And of course, this is all advancing automation. It's bringing about new technologies such as 3D printing, and it's advancing a lot of the practices that were being utilized before, such as data analytics and data science. So when we look at Industry 4.0, what is the promise of it? Well, if we take a look at where it's gone from just strictly digitization into the promise of 4.0. So we started off with this idea of computerization, and now we're all the way up on the right-hand side to adaptability. So this is because of those enabling technologies and capabilities that we saw on the previous screen. And these are allowing businesses to add value to their customers. So we now cannot just only see what's happening in real time with that transparency and understanding that you see here in the middle about what is happening, but we're now moving beyond even that predictive capacity about what could happen and moving into that self-optimization. So it's a new way of being able to respond in a prescriptive way, and not only respond to it, but do it automatically in real time. Now, some other trends that you'll hear about and you might want to read about are, these terms like digital twin. So the digital twin is really allowing companies to have a complete digital footprint of product in technologies utilizing technologies such as the cloud. This is allowing, an example is within manufacturing, allowing us to detect physical issues sooner. It's also allowing sales and marketing to predict outcomes more accurately and even to build better products. So we really are at the far right of this graph here and getting into that autonomous response, and not only the predictability of it being autonomous, but the response being autonomous, and then extracting additional value out of it. So one of the other trends that we hear about is digital transformation. Now we saw that a little bit referenced in the previous slides around Industry 4.0. But when we peel apart, what does digital transformation mean? Because we hear it over and over again. How do you advance digital transformation? It's a great marketing term, but when we look at really what it is, it's taking what was done manually and being able to replace it with a digital process or a digital technology, or in some cases, taking the existing technology and applying modern technology processes and products to it. So when we think about something that is done manually, I'm going to look at data science and the practices within data science, such as data collection and data cleaning. By applying modern technology of machine learning and artificial intelligence to the data collection and the data cleansing process, we're able to do it faster, do it more efficiently, and also get better results out of it. That's just one example of how digital transformation can be enabled within an organization. And of course, unless you're living, in the ground, in a hole under the world, you are starting to realize that we are in the decade of data. We are in what we're referring to as the data economy. So this is that digital ecosystem where we are extracting value and creating products from data itself. So, if we look back 30 years, really the most valuable resource and the largest companies in the world were tied to energy, were tied to oil. Now we're seeing 7 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are built on tying human behavior to data, utilizing the data we have, collecting, extracting value out of it, making predictions from it, automating those predictions, and driving human behavior in a way that is actually creating new products. So you look at somebody as, a company as simple as Uber, right? Uber started without a single car. Airbnb started without a single property, and that shifted how the hospitality, market is working, because you no longer had to have the investment of that ginormous infrastructure of buildings and employees. It was all done through looking and sharing data, predicting what people wanted based upon their needs and wants, and building out a network that could utilize that data to really self-employ, whether it's Uber or Airbnb. And then you look at behemoths like Google, right? It's all about the data. How do we analyze the data? How do we share the data? How do we create new products from data? You look at the Google suite and how it has expanded, and all of the things that are enabled through those technologies. And it's not just specifically around data. This next slide is really identifying what was predicted. And this came out, I think, in late 2019, maybe even in 2018, about predicting what the 30 technologies of this current decade would be. And as you can see here, this is put out by Wikibrands here, but we can see number one is artificial intelligence. This includes all the subsets of artificial intelligence, including machine learning and deep learning, IoT, how we collect the data, right? Not just on the consumer side, but on the manufacturing side as well. Obviously, social, the web and mobile technology, blockchain, big data. So how do we, now that we have all this data available to us, how do we store it? How do we manipulate it? How do we make it accessible and be able to expand and contract with it? Things like cloud technology enable us to do that. So these are all of the trends we're seeing here. And by the way, when we talk about emerging tech, and how we work into building skills and validating skills in emerging tech, really focus on, some of the technologies you see here on the screen: artificial intelligence, IoT, data science, and cybersecurity, which maintains as a technology of this decade as it has in the past 2 decades as well, and really has woven throughout all of the technologies that you see here. So we have our roots in cybersecurity. We will always maintain security throughout all the technologies and the learnings that we have. And we never want to forget that it is a crucial part of interacting with and being reactive to any technology that's available. And the reality is the dollars are out there, right? And the dollars are coming in and they're going out. So when we look at this IDC map of the world and where is the money being spent? And just take a moment here. I think it's very interesting. We always look at a very US-centric point of view in terms of where that spend is. And this is from 2019. But when we spread this across hardware, software, services, which includes training, telecom, and emerging tech. So where is this IT spending happening? And you'll notice, well, the US is still, very prevalent and the leader in the spend. That's shifting across the globe. So this is now a global issue, and because of it becoming a competitive issue. So when we're talking about emerging technologies and we know that you're investing in them, we also know where you're investing in them. So when we look at the spread here, and this happens to just have 5 different categories with new technologies. I love this being lumped into one. And when we talk about new technologies, it can be everything from cloud technology to machine learning technology to data technology, data storage. All of those can be encompassed in them. The one thing that I don't have that I, and I could probably reference for you, and I have I'm going to put this in the chat. I have I'll put the link to this report, which is from ICT, because it does break down what lives in these categories. When we look at services, those services can be everything from subscription services to training and development. So, this is really setting the landscape for the why we're here. Why is, are these trends more than trends? And the reality is from these numbers, yes. So how does this impact us? How does emerging tech and the technologies of this promise of Industry 4.0, what does this mean by in terms of jobs and not just individual jobs, but organizationally, right? So there's a fear, and the fear is, are we going to be replaced by machines? I was participating in a cybersecurity conference a few years ago, and it was interesting. We presented on are the robots coming? And we were presenting in an area of Texas, and as we drove to the conference, there was a billboard, and it was a brilliant plan. It was about, getting ready to retire, and it really promoted this fear of, hey, I've got to get out of this because I'm no longer going to have a job because the robots are coming. And this is, we're going to peel apart what the reality of this is. But the reality is that we're actually not only working with machines, but also machines that process everything that enables the machinery. So whether it is a new way of engineering, whether it is the applications that are allowing humans to interface with these machines, or collecting the data, or designing the applications, the reality is not only are we working with the machines, but we're also developing machines. We're developing the processes and the policies that go along with these with this automation. So what is the reality of it? What is the reality of, are the machines taking over? And the reality, as we see here, now there's a lot of information on this slide, so I'm going to give you just a moment to take a look at this. This is from the World Economic Forum. And as you see in the bottom left-hand corner, the top 10 declining jobs, where these manual processes are going away. And you see those declining roles at 75 million. And then you look above there at the top 10 emerging goals, which is actually 133 million. So it's not like we're going to have a big workforce gap, but what we have is a skills gap. So how do we take somebody like an accountant or an auditor and upskill them into or reskill them into becoming a software developer or a data analyst? And are they interested in doing that? Can we take those transferable skills and turn them into a security professional? And the answer is yes. Now, there's an individual decision to be happening there, but from an organizational idea, if you look at the top 10 declining roles, if you have those within your organization, what is your 5-year plan for those individuals? What is your 10-year plan? What is your 2-year plan? And where do we need to focus now? And if you look at the right-hand side of the screen and we look at the occupations that are going to become fully automated, what we have is, we're showing that 60% of those occupations have at least 30% of the technically automatable, I can't ever say that word, activities, right? So their activities are going to become completely automated. But what we see is that we still have a need to drive those automation services. So some of the physical activities, especially where there are large safety concerns, manual labor, that is higher than, for instance, collecting data. So, and this is coming from a McKinsey, a Future That Works research that was done, whereas the information on the other side of the screen is coming from the World Economic Forum. So if you have any questions about referencing these, we have them on the slides and we can make them available to you. So how ready are we for this, not only as a society, but as organizations? So we dive into some more research here, and this happens to come from Deloitte. And Deloitte is polled leaders, and these are business leaders, not just IT leaders, but they're saying, yes, these emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence and robotics are very important. But they also identified that less than half of the people who said they are important said that they're ready for it. So only 26% of the surveyed organizations said that they're ready to address the impact of technologies. And you may be in one of that, that 74% that really feels like your workforce is not ready. So how do you start to pull apart this widening skills gap? So what we want to do is look at those skills that are going away, identify those roles. Are they within our organization? Do we need more people within those organizations? And how can we look at building out training and learning to build and narrow that skills gap? So what we're seeing here, and this is from Gartner, is that we know that this gap is widening, right? So while we have a clear idea that managers don't feel like their employees can keep pace with it, we also have a perception from employees that they don't feel like they've mastered the skills necessary. And there's a 6% gap in that. So as a manager, you probably have this feeling that your employees are even more adept at adapting than they really are. So it's important to look at emerging technology as continuous learning. We are no longer at the luxury of being able to hire somebody out of college or out of a university or out of a vocational program and knowing that those skills are going to be good for the duration of their career. With emerging technology and how quickly it's changing and how it is changing from generations coming into the workforce and leaving the workforce, we really need to look at how can we continually educate our employees. So where are those gaps living? So if you look at the first quote here, it focuses on IoT skills. So if you have IoT solutions or are intending on implementing IoT solutions or are trying to secure IoT solutions within your infrastructure, many organizations are feeling that they're not prepared. 80% of organizations. So you may be implementing projects and people are kind of putting it together with duct tape and band-aids. You really don't want that. It's not sustainable. So why not give your employees the opportunities to upskill, learn more about IoT, learn more about securing IoT if they are managing that or being put in charge of operating that. And the same is true with artificial intelligence. Why are AI projects failing? It's not about the technology. The technology is there. It's the people that have to be able to work with the technology, that it's a barrier to implement AI solutions as part of business operations, as part of manufacturing, as part of the data science practice. And as you look there, you see that data science is one of the top 20 fastest growing occupations. And the other thing, to think about when you're looking at your employees and how you're reskilling them is to think, if I give them the opportunity and the incentive to, gain the skills that are specifically needed within our organization, we're going to be able to retain that talent there, rather than going off and investing in themselves and then leaving, right? Because we're looking at these incredulous salaries. But we also know from data from hiring, if you look on data around LinkedIn or Indeed, we also know that people looking for jobs are no longer solely incented by salary. They want to be able to have an organization that is going to allow them to continuously learn and adapt, that is going to invest in them throughout their career or throughout their tenure at their organization. And they want to be able to have transferable skills from one opportunity within an organization to another opportunity within an organization. We also have data around the fact that, oftentimes we hear from organizations, I don't want to invest too much in my employees because I'm afraid they're going to leave. The reality is you have a greater um, chance of an employee leaving if you do not provide opportunities for them to learn than you do if you do. If so, by training, it's actually a form of retention. So how do we move beyond IT, and where do we start to develop skills beyond IT? I think that our IT professionals and our IT organizations are very good at continuous learning around technology, around the new processes. But what we're seeing is a gap within the rest of the organizations. And with emerging tech, it's not just focused on IT anymore. Everyone in an organization, whether it's a business analyst, a compliance officer, has to be able to interact and understand what is going on with the technology within their organization and the strategic plans around implementing new technologies to carry that business growth forward. So where we stand and where we are looking at role-based learning in a data-driven organization. So there's two things. There's knowledge, and then there's knowledge and skills. So when we look at knowledge, we're talking about things like terminology. What are the concepts? How do I apply that to business? And how do I create a strategy that allows us to take advantage of these new technologies? This includes people within your organization, leaders. Maybe some of you fall into this category. We all know the fear of imposter syndrome, right? You get called into the boardroom for a strategic planning session, and people are talking about digital transformation, and they're talking about implementing data science practices and incorporating machine learning. And you're looking at them like they're speaking a foreign language, because it is a foreign language. So one of the things that can close the gap on, situations like that, whether it is a small meeting or whether it's a large initiative, is to educate and provide knowledge around emerging tech and what it means, and what the opportunities are to leaders, to business stakeholders, and especially to product and project managers who are managing and driving forward these projects. There's nothing more frustrating as a project manager than to be able to be driving along a timeline and looking for completion on something, and you can't understand why the model that they trained and they have developed to work on a data project or a business operations project, why the model that they used is not working, because when they went to scale it, it exploded. Well, understanding what the data science workflow is and how that falls and where the pitfalls are, and also looking at the bigger picture around things like data ethics. Something is going to fail because if we put it out there, it's going to cause harm to the business reputation of our company, and even further create some dangerous implications and be harmful for the people that are using it. So understanding what those downstream implications are at that knowledge level becomes incredibly important for digital transformation projects to succeed and not fall into that 70% of failed projects. And then you have the people implementing and securing these projects, right? So you've got your data scientists, you've got your data analysts, you've got your data wranglers, you've got your IoT practitioners and your programmers and your software developers. And those are the people that not only need the knowledge, but they need those hands-on skills. And maybe strategically, or definitely strategically, you're either working across technologies, or you haven't even determined which technology you're using, or you're working within a larger subset of a project around a machine learning initiative or a data science initiative, where you know that you're going to be having to have those foundational skills that cross different platforms. So in that case, these are your data professionals, your IT professionals, your software development professionals, and product development and security professionals who need not only the knowledge, but they need to be able to take those transferable skills and apply them immediately to what they're doing. So what does this mean within an organization in terms of what do I do? Who needs what? So we look at skill development in 4 different ways. First of all is the idea of reskilling. So this is the idea of learning new skills to do a different job. So this is where we're looking at those declining roles within an organization, and we're actually reskilling that individual or individuals or that department to do a different job. So taking that accountant and making them more into a data analyst, a data scientist, a data practitioner. And then there's the idea of upskilling. So this is learning new skills to do the same job. Think about somebody like your security practitioners. Their roles are getting more and more expansive, and keeping those skills up, which is why, we do things like we look at our cybersecurity certification programs, and we are updating them quicker and quicker because things such as cloud computing and IoT really affect the security professional's ability to do their job. And how do you continually build new skills to do that same job? The job hasn't changed, but the technology and the skills behind it have. So, and then there's this idea of new skilling. So this is learning new skills for future jobs. So it is the idea of taking somebody who is and building out somebody who has some computing skills and maybe some domain knowledge, whether it's in industry or within their skill set, and adding on things like machine learning skills to move them away into and getting them closer to becoming that data science practitioner that you really need. And then finally, it is outskilling. So this is training workers for the future job market, but not intending to retain them. And this is the case when you are doing large scale shifting in job roles and downsizing oftentimes, changing or moving into new areas of business, but you're creating a pathway out for workers as well. So these are the 4 categories within skill development. So identifying what you're doing with these categories is really important because you want to see what the path is. We always talk about the path in terms of what do I need to learn next, but what's the end goal? Are they going to stay in the same job? Are they going to stay in the same company? Are they going to be looking for a future job within the company because your strategic initiative says, hey, listen, we can only pay consultants so long to do this, but when we actually go to be operational or bring a project to scale, we need people within our organization. So that would be considered a future job and fall into the new skilling. So how does certification work in this? Well, certification validates the skills and knowledge that somebody is required to have in order to jump into these new roles. And so this happens to be coming from an IT Career Insights study that was done. And what they found out are 3 things that you see here. First of all, certification preparation leads to confidence. So we know that people that are well-trained professionals are more confident in the skills that they possess if they and then they also are appropriate and useful for their responsibilities. So it provides confidence. We know that going in and having somebody else assess your skills, knowledge, and abilities and validate that raises confidence in people. We also know that validation reliably attests to the level of knowledge. So certified employees can be relied upon to perform at a higher level and have more domain knowledge than those untrained employees. We also know that business activities are executed more consistently so that certified employees can be expected to perform assigned tasks more consistently with increasing reliability and overall organizational execution. So this is by going in and consistently validating, whether it be, an annual compliance training and validating they know these things within, say, cybersecurity, or if you take it to a higher level of high stakes certification in terms of something like, cybersecure coding or IoT development and being a practitioner within that. So what are the opinions of testing after training? So you have somebody that just goes in and validates their skills by going in and getting certified, right? But you also have this idea of skilling and you want to be able to provide training for them. So how important is it for somebody to get that validation after they take the training? And here's what we found out. 52% found it very important, right? So 89% of the people supported post-training assessment. And so by adding in what we saw in the previous slide with raising the confidence, raising the efficiency, and also understanding that the people that are taking the training are craving that validation, right? They want to be proved that what they learned, they have retained, and they can apply, is significant. This comes from the same report as what we saw on the previous screen as well. And so this idea of continuous learning and continuous upskilling, we talked about how no longer are we at the luxury of bringing in somebody at the formal education level and just continuing them on, as they come in. Maybe they take a little bit of continuing education, right? So continuing education can either be organizationally driven or personally driven. And then we have on-the-job training, but we also have professional development. So within continuing education, within professional development, you as an organization, as well as with the on-the-job specific to your organization role, have the ability to continually build this training. And while I put it as a stepped process on this, this really is a cycle. So you may reach a point where an individual needs to go back and get that formal education. But oftentimes the continuing education, the professional development, and the on-the-job training can create a cycle of continuous learning that allows for you to adapt to emerging tech and the growing needs within emerging technology. So how do we at CertNexus help you do this? And what are some things that New Horizons can offer to you in our portfolio? So as I said, we look at an organization as a whole. So we look at our business leaders, our end users, people that need that knowledge, and we offer micro-credentials at what we call our think level across all of our technologies. Our technologies being cybersecurity, Internet of Things, data science, artificial intelligence, and data ethics. And while we think that data ethics is its own area, it's not necessarily a technology, it actually spreads across all of the technologies that you see previously. And applies to other technologies you're not seeing here, such as cloud, such as robotics, and 3D printing, everything that is utilizing data. But at our think level, we have mostly our business portfolio, which is incident response or IoT or data science, AI or data ethics for the business professional. We can combine these all into an emerging tech for business professionals. And then we have our end user program for CyberSafe for end user cybersecurity, which can meet the needs of any compliance requirements that your organization has. And then we look at the people who are responsible for building and supporting the technologies. We look at our software developers and our programmers who are responsible for building all of the applications and the business processes and programs that support an organization, and making sure that that open source code that they're utilizing, and by the way, everyone's using it, it's a standard practice. How do we make sure that that is secure to help our cybersecurity professionals avoid the need for a breach because it wasn't designed correctly? We have our IoT practitioner for people who are supporting IoT programs and services, our data science practitioner for data analysts and business analysts, and data, people within statisticians who are looking to expand their practice and get more into the data science workflow and life cycle. And then people who are going to be implementing the AI and machine learning practices as part of those data science and data teams, we have our AI practitioner. Across our technologies, we always are starting to think about ethics. We believe that ethics is the new cybersecurity. So if you're not taking into consideration things like accountability and transparency, implementing policies and understanding how to do assessments, risk assessments around ethics, the same way that you would do for cybersecurity, this is a huge area of growth, and we're seeing a need for it across the world. And then finally, we cannot forget the individuals responsible for securing all these technologies, whether it is IoT or across the infrastructure of CyberSec First Responder, which is our flagship certification. And if we look at this by role, as I said, we really want to think about the entire organization. So if you are in leadership or you're a business professional, what do you need to take? We look at those think level courses. If you are a programmer, looking at not only being cyber safe, which is this outside circle, which we believe everybody should be having. But also, how are you securing your code? Are you designing programs securely? And are you looking at how you're utilizing data around your development of applications ethically? And the same for data scientists. So this just breaks down and is a little bit different visually from what you saw on the previous screen in terms of looking at the whole organization. Where do you want to put your focus on by role? Your ops people, if they're dealing with IoT, especially if you're in manufacturing, do they understand what that means? Do they understand how to secure it? Are you relying specifically on your security team to, be responsible for all of the security applications around your IoT devices that you're using on your manufacturing floor or you're using for preventative maintenance, etc. So by enabling more people with those skills, you are creating a greater barrier to the threats that are out there. So that is, I'm at about 45 minutes. I don't want to keep people too long. I do want to open it up for questions and make it available. I have a couple more screens here. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, put them in the Q&A, and Vanessa will be sure to read them out to me. If you don't have any questions, but you think of them later, please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Megan Smith Branch on LinkedIn. You can connect with CertNexus on LinkedIn as well. But more importantly, if you're starting to evaluate, and this has raised some questions for you, I think that Vanessa is going to talk a little bit about how you can take that next step, where the classes are. And also, I think we have the opportunity for somebody to actually win something here, don't we, Vanessa?
We do, yes. Thank you, Megan. And thank you so much for the very informative presentation. First things first, we do have a few questions that came in through the chat box. So I will read those off for you here. First one that came in: where do you see the biggest risk to organizations in terms of personnel development?
So I think that in terms of personnel development, if I look across an entire organization, there's two areas currently. Always is cybersecurity. So, and I saw another question come up in terms of what would you suggest the first course to take? I believe that every person within an organization should look at CyberSafe in terms of just understanding some basic and foundational knowledge around how to secure your data and your infrastructure. It's also great personally, simple things like when we look at how we're working from home, and even I will get up and walk away from my computer now and forget to lock it, right? Something as simple as that. Especially if you have your home office in a place where, like today, we have people working in our house. So I want to make sure that somebody doesn't have access. These are simple things to do. Understanding, what does a phishing email look like? People are getting smarter with phishing emails. What are some things that are, I'm looking at my computer and it's slowing me down. So the first would be cybersecurity, and looking at cyber safe for everyone within your organization. And then I think the next biggest risk, because we are in a data-driven society right now, is data ethics. We are really excited about our data ethics for business professionals course that's coming out next month, or actually at the end of this month. It's already October already. And looking at that, and really this is an opportunity to go beyond data privacy. While data privacy is very important, it is only a subset of what is needed around data ethics and what are things that organizations need to do. And the reason I say those two things is because that's where not only do you have risk to your organization, but you also have risk in terms of regulation. We're very familiar with cybersecurity regulation, but we're starting to see regulation in terms of the ethical use of data. And that is going to be coming very quickly. If you were watching recently about the whistleblower at Facebook, and their presentation to Congress, if you don't think that you're going to see regulations, just take a look at some of the clips there. You're going to see regulations coming down. So by setting up the infrastructure within your organization to manage that before you're hit with regulatory fines, I would highly recommend it, and getting everyone in your organization on board and taking that cultural shift. So I know that was a long answer, Vanessa, but those would be my recommendations.
And this is Joe. I have an add-on to this. So for those that don't know me, I run the Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany New Horizons Centers. So thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Megan, for speaking on the topic. I will say, leaving regulations aside, since COVID, right, since distributed workforce, since more and more companies, sent their employees to work from home and are probably sticking in some sort of hybrid format today as we start to come out of COVID, that question of where do you suggest we start from Tom Allen, I agree with Megan in that cybersafe is where we should start. And I can see from, our clients within the region, from some of you on this phone call, right, we've had a pretty good uptick in our cybersafe sales. I think in general, folks, particularly in IT, are worried about cybersecurity awareness, within their employees, within their staff, not just their IT group, but everybody at the organization, as people are working from home and as we're in this kind of distributed workforce, type format. So, Megan suggests cybersafe, and I could say that's absolutely what's happening if you look at, how our clients are responding to COVID and work from home, here in the local area. So totally agreed, Megan. Cybersafe is probably the best place to start, and it's certainly where people are starting. So,
and Joe, you've got some really creative solutions that organizations in your area have taken advantage of around cybersafe too, to, enable them to, provide that training and that assessment and that validation across their organization, right? So you're doing some creative things that we're not seeing anywhere else.
Yeah, for CyberSafe, we run a program called CyberSafe All You Can Eat. It's a terrible name, but the idea is right. An organization, an IT director says, "Hey, we're going to send all of our employees to CyberSafe. I don't want to pay, and get POs individually, right? That sounds like a lot of work, sending all my employees to CyberSafe. So what they do is they pay one price, for all their employees. They get a coupon code from us, and they literally direct their employees to a landing page where employees can register in whatever date they want, right? These aren't necessarily private classes that, companies have to coordinate. These are enrollments, right? Single enrollments, sending people into our public cybersafe, class schedule. And it's just really easy. It's really easy for decision makers, whether they're in IT or maybe even HR, they're concerned about cybersecurity awareness. It's really easy to work with us, pay your one-time, fee to be part of the program, right? And then just send a quick link to all of your employees to register for the program. And what we do afterwards, within the class, we show all the employees, all of your staff, how to take the cybersafe assessment, how to actually get the low stakes certification that CertNexus offers when it comes to end user cybersecurity awareness. We show everybody how to take that assessment, and we'll actually send weekly or monthly reports, whatever cadence we determine is mutually beneficial with the organization. We'll send a little report that show, hey, these are the employees that took CyberSafe already. These are the ones that passed. These are the ones that failed. These are the ones that didn't try to take it yet, right? And, we stay up with the organization to make sure they understand who has successfully become CyberSafe, certified within the group. And what CertNexus does, which I think is really cool, is once you get your CyberSafe assessment, you actually get a LinkedIn badge from CertNexus that those that are particularly digitally savvy that use things like LinkedIn, right? They can actually put that badge on their LinkedIn profile and kind of, broadcast not only to the world, but honestly within the company itself that they're CyberSafe certified. And a lot of people get a really cool kick out of that. So we've had pretty good success with that program. It can be daunting to have all of your employees go through a cybersecurity training program. But hopefully, CyberSafe all you can eat. That's one we found to make it a little bit easier for organizations to stomach as they just consider the risks of working kind of in this distributed workforce that we're all, for better or worse, kind of working in now. So
yeah, so New Horizons is bringing back the buffet, whether we want to or not, right?
That's right.
But it's also great because one of the things that we hear all the time is, people like to learn from other people. And so with the CyberSafe All You Can Eat, you don't have to figure out a time to pull everybody off of work and put them into a class. They have the flexibility to enroll in those classes when it's available to them and when it works for your organization as well. So you don't have an entire department out at one time, right? You can mix and match that. So that's awesome. And by the way, that I will say, working with partners across the world, New Horizons is really in this region is the only organization that's doing a program like that. So I would highly recommend people take advantage of it. Okay, Vanessa, not to stick on, I know you've got some other business to take care of. You've got some winners. So I'm gonna advance to the next slide here.
Okay.
And Vanessa has actually on the side nominated me to handle our winner. So I actually did. I
thought you were going to win it. I thought that was a little bit weird, Joe.
No, I am not going to take the $25. So actually on my screen here, I have the list of attendees, and I did a Google, random number generator. I trust you all take my word for it. I don't need to share my screen, but I did this, and the attendee list is in alphabetical order. And it looks like the random number generated was number 2. And so number 2 on my list is Artrell Williams, who I believe Artrell, I've actually met you before, I think at our open house in Buffalo, back when we opened the new Buffalo facility. Man, I hope I'm not confusing you with somebody else. But Artrell, you are our lucky winner of the $25. Oh, Artrell says, yeah, good. I'm glad I didn't confuse you. I'm glad I didn't confuse you with anybody else, Artrell. That's great. I remember me and Anne-Marie talked with you for a little bit. So I will make sure that we get that gift card out to you soon. Artrell, I'll send it to Sam to send to you. And we'll make sure you get that gift card. So happy you're able to win. My last name.
Awesome.
Well, this was my first name, Artrell. So Zoom has really changed your whole outlook on how life could go for you. So that's great. That's good.
I know. Congratulations, Artrell, and congratulations, Joe, for actually recalling something correctly there. That's
correct.
Fantastic.
2 years ago. Incredibly attentive to detail, except for when I'm not. So good.
Fantastic. So I just changed, I've got some links here. I think Vanessa can put them in the chat for you. If you're interested in learning more and getting more thought leadership around the data journey, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can connect with us on LinkedIn. You can get, if you prefer to get things in your inbox and want our smart brief, by the way, you can subscribe to it. And then if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe to it. No big deal. But that does come into your inbox 2 times weekly, and talk specifically around the areas of what data is being done in business, a data ethics corner, and what is the biggest news in the corporate world around data. And then, of course, we've got all of the pertinent information, the important phone numbers to get a hold of Joe's team in Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany, as well as an email if you're like me and you prefer to email. And of course, the website to find all of the CertNexus classes and any of the classes that can lead you to those CertNexus classes as well, because we do understand that people aren't going to go right into a certified data science practitioner. Maybe they want to learn how to do some data analytics or do some business intelligence first. And so there's some fantastic leading courses for that as well. Vanessa, anything else that we want to do before we can close out today?
No, I don't think so. As I mentioned earlier, we will send a follow-up email to everyone with a link to this recording, so you can refer to it later at your leisure. But I think that is it. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining us. Megan, thank you so much for talking and kind of sharing all that info about the CertNexus portfolio. It's been fairly successful here with clients here in Albany, and hopefully everyone learned a little bit about how we all can mutually work together to fill some of these skills gaps. I thought it was a pretty cool presentation. So thank you for doing it.
Fantastic. As always, fun to be with you guys, and have a wonderful, wonderful day and enjoy your data journey.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.